He tried to buy my silence. The words echoed in my mind as I gripped my coffee cup, the warmth failing to calm my racing heart. I wasn't just talking about anyone. I was talking about Senator Richard Caldwell, a man with decades of power, influence, and a reputation for bending the rules. And he thought I could be bought. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. I'd spent years serving my country as a Navy officer, rising through the ranks with discipline, integrity, and sacrifice. I'd seen corruption, I'd seen challenges, but nothing prepared me for this. An elected official attempting to bribe me in a quiet government office, thinking no one would notice. The meeting had started like any other, professional, courteous, with polite conversation about upcoming contracts and Navy operations. But then the tone shifted. Senator Caldwell leaned back in his leather chair, a smug smile playing across his face. "Lieutenant Commander Thompson," he said smoothly, "it would be unfortunate if certain details about this contract reached the public, but perhaps we could reach an understanding. For the right price, of course." Time slowed. I could feel my pulse in my throat. I had a choice. Ignore him, confront him directly, or record him. One flick of my thumb later, my phone was secretly recording. Every word, every insinuation, every attempt to manipulate and threaten was now captured. I knew the stakes. If he found out, my career could be jeopardized. Navy colleagues, superiors, and even the media might twist the story. Yet I also knew something else. Integrity was not negotiable. Standing silent would mean compromising everything I had worked for. As I sat there, pretending to sip my coffee, the senator continued, unaware that every word was being recorded. Could one recording really bring down a man this powerful? Could I turn this into proof, into justice, without putting myself in the crosshairs? I slipped my phone into my pocket, steady but tense, heart hammering against my ribs. I had taken the first step. The question now was, would my courage be enough to take him all the way to court? And what would happen when the room, my peers, the media, and the senator himself witnessed the truth? I didn't know yet, but I was about to find out. The envelope slid across the polished table. I froze for a moment, my eyes narrowing. Inside, cash. Enough to silence me indefinitely. Senator Caldwell leaned back in his chair, confident, smug, like a cat watching a mouse. My pulse quickened, but I forced myself to stay calm. I'd faced danger in far worse situations than a politician's dirty game, but this was different. This was personal. I reminded myself of my Navy oath, of the discipline and integrity I'd built over years of service. I'd commanded units under fire, negotiated tense situations with lives at stake, and upheld the law no matter the cost. No envelope, no amount of money would change that. The senator's voice was smooth but sinister. "Lieutenant Commander Thompson, surely you understand the benefits of discretion. It would make things easier for everyone." I could see the flicker of his assistant, hovering in the corner of the room, unsure what to do. Their silence added to the tension. I remembered my family's words. "Don't get involved in politics. It's a world of sharks." I'd always said my job was about protecting people, defending principles. This was a test of those principles. I shifted slightly in my seat, pretending to sip my coffee, while my hand discreetly brushed against my pocket, ensuring the recorder was on. Every word he spoke was now evidence. I had to stay calm. One wrong move, and he might realize what I was doing, and the consequences would be catastrophic, not just for me, but for anyone who might stand up against him. As he continued, subtle threats and hints of retaliation filled the room. It would be unfortunate if certain documents were made public, but we could resolve this quietly. I swallowed hard. Every instinct screamed, record, document, survive. But the fear wasn't paralyzing, it was sharpening. Finally, I made my decision. I left the envelope untouched and slid my phone into my jacket pocket, confirming the recording was working. I stood, nodding politely, pretending nothing had happened. But inside, I knew the real fight was just beginning. The moment I left the meeting room, my mind raced. The envelope sat untouched on the table, and the senator still believed he had the upper hand. But I had something far more powerful: proof. I clutched my phone in my pocket, feeling the slight vibration from the recording. Every word he had spoken, the bribes, the veiled threats, the insistence that I stay silent, was now irrefutable evidence. I knew I couldn't act impulsively. One wrong step, and the senator's network of influence could bury me before the truth ever saw the light of day. But the Navy had taught me strategy, patience, and how to navigate power. I dialed my legal counsel and began laying out my plan. The days that followed were tense. Rumors swirled in political circles, and I could feel the subtle glances from colleagues, some supportive, some skeptical. The senator's office was already maneuvering, trying to spin the narrative, undermine me, and question my credibility. But I had years of training to stand firm under scrutiny. I filed a formal complaint through the proper channels, submitting the recording as evidence. The Navy leadership, initially cautious, recognized the gravity of the situation. Soon, the wheels of justice began to turn. I realized this wasn't just about me. It was about sending a message that corruption and intimidation would not be tolerated, no matter the office held by the offender. Then came the turning point. A court date was set. The senator's legal team looked confident, even smug. They underestimated me, thinking a decorated Navy officer would crumble under public and political pressure. But I had prepared meticulously, anticipating every possible attack. The stakes were no longer hypothetical, they were very real. Every day, the media seemed to report some new angle. My family and colleagues watched anxiously. Every conversation, every news update carried weight. I wasn't just defending my honor, I was protecting the integrity of every mission I had led, every life I had been responsible for. Losing would not just tarnish my reputation, it could embolden those who thought power could silence courage. Finally, the day of the hearing arrived. I walked into the courtroom, every step purposeful. The senator's smirk was still there, his confidence unshaken. But as I took my place at the stand, head held high, I knew one thing. He had no idea what was coming. The courtroom was packed. Reporters whispered, cameras clicked, and even seasoned legal officers leaned forward in anticipation. Senator Caldwell sat at the defense table, looking as confident as ever, his hands steepled, a smirk still playing on his face. But I could feel the room shift as I stepped forward. Every eye turned toward me, and for the first time, I realized the full weight of what I was about to do. This was more than a trial. This was the moment where years of training, integrity, and courage collided with the arrogance of power. My Navy oath, to serve honorably, to uphold the law, wasn't just words on a page. It was my armor, my shield, and my weapon. The prosecutor nodded to me, and I activated the recording, letting the evidence speak for itself. Senator Caldwell's voice filled the room. Every bribe offered, every veiled threat, every attempt to manipulate and silence me. The confidence in the room shifted immediately. Gasps echoed from the gallery, and the senator's smirk faltered. I remained calm, steady, and composed. I watched as his assistant shifted uncomfortably, as his legal team whispered frantically, realizing the evidence was irrefutable. The recording wasn't just proof, it was the truth, undeniable and complete. The judge leaned forward, his expression grave, absorbing every word. Caldwell attempted to interrupt, tried to deny, tried to spin the narrative, but the evidence spoke louder than any words he could fabricate. Witnesses, colleagues, even media personnel were stunned. A powerful man, caught in the act, powerless against a Navy officer's courage and foresight. Every second that passed, the weight of the moment settled in the room. The senator's influence, his connections, his arrogance, they meant nothing against truth captured in my hand, in my pocket in that recording. I felt a surge of vindication, but I didn't let it show. The focus had to remain on justice. Finally, The judge turned his gaze to the senator. Silence gripped the courtroom. All eyes were fixed, every breath held. My heart pounded, but I stood firm. The moment had arrived. "Senator Caldwell," the judge said slowly, "how do you plead?" The room seemed to hold its breath. Every witness, every reporter, every colleague in that chamber waited for the answer that would decide everything. The courtroom was silent as Senator Caldwell finally spoke. "Guilty, Your Honor." The words echoed like a victory bell. The evidence was irrefutable. The recording I had taken in that tense, dangerous meeting had exposed the attempted bribery in every detail. All the questions that had haunted me, the fear, the risk, the doubts about whether anyone would believe a Navy officer standing up to a powerful senator, were answered. Justice had prevailed. The judge formally sentenced him for attempted bribery, ordering restitution and barring him from public office. The courtroom erupted in murmurs, disbelief, and relief. Those who had doubted me now understood the weight of courage and preparation. I felt a rush of relief, validation, and pride. Years of discipline, years of service, and a lifetime of commitment to integrity had culminated in this moment. I allowed myself a small smile, glancing around the courtroom. My colleagues nodded with quiet respect. My family, who had always encouraged me to stand tall and uphold my principles, were visibly moved. For the first time in weeks, I exhaled fully. The tension, the fear, the constant second-guessing, it was over. I had faced intimidation head-on, and I had not only survived, but triumphed. The impact extended far beyond the courtroom. Legally, Caldwell's career was finished. Politically, he became a cautionary tale about the limits of power when confronted by truth. Socially, my actions inspired colleagues and even civilians to recognize the importance of integrity over fear. Personally, I strengthened my sense of self-worth and professional credibility. I was no longer just a decorated officer. I was a symbol of unwavering ethical courage. Even the media coverage highlighted the message. A Navy officer had dared to challenge corruption, and she had won. My colleagues in the Navy reached out, offering congratulations and support, acknowledging that courage could sometimes ripple farther than force or influence. As I walked out of the courtroom that day, I felt the sunlight on my face and the weight of the world slightly lighter. I knew I had done the right thing, not for fame, not for recognition, but because it was the right thing to do. The truth had prevailed, the corrupt had been exposed, and integrity had been honored. And in that moment, I realized something profound. Courage is contagious, and justice is always worth the risk. I had faced a powerful man, stood my ground, and walked away with my principles intact. I had won, not just the trial, but the affirmation that standing up for what's right can change everything.